Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of To The Point podcast. Everybody's doing well on this Monday, coming off a great weekend of sports, great weekend in general as we just got through Halloween. We're into the month of November, if you can believe it. Being a Monday, we do two podcasts today where I talk about the NFL here, and then later on we'll dive into the rest of the world of sports. The hockey headline so far, the World Series, which is pivoting back to Houston after the Astros got the victory last evening. Talk some early season NBA. So lots to dive into around the sports world. Also talk about the Kyle Beach story and news that we've gotten today, and just some new thoughts that I have on the situation. In particular about Donald Fear, the head of the Players Association. And Friday, if you missed it, I had a great conversation with Creighton Fillmore, a friend of mine, about Kyle Beach and the way it was handled, and just society today, and how people in positions of power really gave no respect to their employee, to their it's like Joel Quenneville, to his player. And it was really troubling, to be quite frank, yesterday. And it still upsetting. They're going to be going to court. This is far from over. So this is going to be in our face for a while. And I think Gary Bettman and Bill Daly and the NHL is going to be facing this for a while. They're not going to be able to just have a press conference and talk about, try to get onto a different story. This is going to be in the public eye for a while. And I get that some people can get a little bit of fatigue from that. But at the same time, this is important. This is setting a precedent. This is the same as Hakeem Aliu. This is the same as, the Me Too movement. There's things that just need to happen so that shit doesn't happen again. For Hakeem Aliu to come out, people might throw stones at the time that he did it. Well, as crazy as it sounds, calling somebody the N-word a decade ago was way more acceptable than it is now. I don't know why that is, but it just is. People were okay with it a decade ago, and that word should never be uttered. It's such a derogatory term, but it was okay. Where now it's pointed out, and that's not snowflake culture or being soft. People, you can't call somebody that. And in this case, you can't have a business, which is what the NHL is, and have Kyle Beach get extorted like this, get just misleaded like this, to be forgotten, and for him to try to do the right thing a decade ago, and for the NHL just to slap him in the face and give him no support and no help. This story has to keep going so that hopefully Kyle Beach can stop this from happening to athletes across the world, and in particular stop this from happening in NHL and minor league locker rooms when it comes to hockey players. So we'll dive into all that later. This week on the podcast, tomorrow I'll be podcasting with Seamus. We're taking a week off from Breaking Bad as we finished season 4 last week. So we will talk about the NHL. I know he's fired up about his Leafs actually winning a couple of games, albeit against Chicago and Detroit. But they're into a tough week here where they get Vegas, Tampa, and Boston, the team that they're kryptonite. So we'll touch on that. Morgan Riley getting a big extension, the Maple Leafs salary cap structure. I'm not a mathematician, but I'll try to figure that one out later today, as well as how they're going to, they can pay me and Seamus to play on the team next year, because that's the only cap room they're going to have. And we'll touch on a whole lot of things. Calgary Flames, hot start to the season. Where the Blackhawks go from here. Arizona still not having a win on their resume. So lots to dive into there. For the first time, Walker Campbell, a friend of mine, will join me this week. We'll talk about the NFL. That should be Wednesday night. As of now, we're still scheduling, but that should be Wednesday evening. So we'll talk about week 9. We'll preview Thursday night football. We'll talk about a lot of different things as we lead into next weekend's games. But yesterday, it was week 8 in the NFL, fresh off of a great Thursday night football game where we saw the Green Bay Packers defeat the Arizona Cardinals after Kyler Murray and AJ Green were not on the same page and intercepted in the end zone by Rasul Douglas to close out the game. And you start week 8 with how did Green Bay win that game? And what was the play? It was a defensive play. Rasul Douglas, the cornerback, makes a play on the receiver, intercepts the ball. That was the theme of week 8. And to me, I've seen it too many times this year where offense is better than it ever has been. The passing game is just different than it ever has been. I'm sure Dan Marino, Troy Aikman, John Elway, Steve Young look at the game today and say, I could have threw for 6,000 yards, which John Elway and Dan Marino, I wouldn't put it past them. And how you can't hit the quarterback. And the NFL has made it so difficult on defensive players to have a true impact on the game. You can't hit the quarterback anymore. You can thank Tom Brady for that rule. You can't throw late hits. You can't really engage. You taunt somebody, even when it's not taunting. Flag. But through all of that, through the hurdles, to me, defense can still win you big games and I believe championships. Because there was too many games yesterday where it wasn't the offensive players that won the game. It was defense. To run through them. Did the Pittsburgh Steelers offense lead them to a victory yesterday? They put up 15 points. Big Ben nickeled and dimed. Najee Harris nearly ran for 100 yards. Sure, he made a couple good out routes to Deontay Johnson. But what did that Pittsburgh defense do? Sacked Baker Mayfield 5 times. Forced a fumble that was recovered by the Pittsburgh defense. They made life hell. The run game could not get established. And when you got to the red zone, who was stingy? The defense. TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Minkah Fitzpatrick. It wasn't Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Pat Freiermuth, Najee Harris. No. Defense won that game for Pittsburgh. Let's go to Tennessee and Indianapolis. Sure, it was a high-scoring game towards the end. But when the going got tough, with 1 minute and 45 seconds left, with Carson Wentz having the ball at his own 3, who got pressure? Jeffrey Simmons, the defensive tackle, had his arms around Wentz in the end zone, which would have been a safety. So he makes a great defensive play. It would have been 2 points. Wentz, being Carson Wentz, throws the ball up, intercepted, pick 6. Sure, the Colts came back and scored a touchdown, but who got an interception on Wentz in overtime? The Tennessee defense. Did they cap off that drive with a touchdown? No. Randy Bullock had to make a 43-yard field goal. Not to mention in that game, the Indianapolis Colts intercepted Ryan Tannehill twice. Yesterday was about defense. Tom Brady, 600 touchdown passes. Most people think he's the greatest football player to ever lace up the cleats. Boy, did he look average yesterday. Now, I'm sure some people will say, well, he didn't have Gronk and he didn't have AB. Okay. He had Mike Evans, who's made it to 8 straight Pro Bowls. He had Chris Godwin, who led the team in catches last year, has been to back-to-back Pro Bowls. He had Leonard Fournette. It wasn't like he was playing with mincemeat out there. And at times, it looked like Tom Brady was going to lead the team back, and in most cases, he would have. The Saints get a field goal with $1:48 left, and I'm watching the game with my parents. I said, that's a mistake. I would have went for it on 4th and 4. And that's why I'm not a head coach and Sean Payton is. Now, I still think me going for it on 4th and 4 was the smarter play. Because 9 times out of 10, you give Tom Brady the ball back with a timeout and you only need a field goal to win, he's going to win that game every time. However, it was at 10% yesterday. Tom Brady's got the ball, nearly throws a pick on 1st down. So close. I'm like, okay, there's the chance the Saints had, Marcus Williams. But the next play, P.J. Williams intercepts the ball to the house. Pick 6. Not only that, the New Orleans Saints lost Jameis Winston. Did not have Taysom Hill concussion. Had to turn to Trevor Siemian, the former quarterback of the Denver Broncos. Let me just tell you, other than John Elway and Peyton Manning, over the last 20, 30 years, any other quarterback that leaves Denver, you don't want. And yet, he came in after Jameis tears his ACL. And he wins. He gets the win. Didn't turn the ball over. Tom Brady turned the ball over 3 times. 2 interceptions and a forced fumble recovered by the Saints. What's the difference? Defense can still win you championships. The Tampa Bay Bucks did it last season. It continues to happen. Justin Herbert. He's the next big thing. He's a great quarterback, which he is. What happened yesterday? He ran into a buzzsaw, and his name is Bill Belichick. And what did that defense allow? 7 points in the second half. 7 points? With Herbert and Eckler and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Jared Cook? How did they lose? How about Adrian Phillips, former Charger, 2 interceptions? How about a forced fumble? How about Matt Judon with 2 sacks? We can talk about offense all we want. And it's still the more sexy topic. I get it. Of course. You're going to get more play. It's going to be more interesting. I'm sure even you listening are probably like, Noah, enough with the defense. It's funner to talk about Justin Herbert and Josh Allen and Mac Jones, which I will. But you watch the games and you think, how did they win? The defense. San Francisco beat the Chicago Bears yesterday. Justin Fields had his best game as a pro. But how did San Fran win? Timely sacks. Justin Fields' inexperience, holding the ball too long, losing 10, 12 yards on a bootleg. Throw the ball away. Inexperience cost him. Where you get some turnovers, you get Jimmy G who does it, you're going to win the game. And you even look at last night, Sunday Night Football. Prior to the game, no Dak Prescott for the Dallas Cowboys. It's Cooper Rush, who prior to this had not had an NFL start. He just played some garbage duty. He's 1 for 3 for 2 yards in his career. Now, Cooper Rush did turn the ball over last night. But did he look afraid? No. He didn't look like he was afraid of the moment. The run game wasn't even that great for the Dallas Cowboys. But he has a plethora of great receivers in CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and the emerging Cedric Wilson out of the slot, including 2 decent tight ends with Dalton Schultz and Blake Jarwin. But what did we see last night? A really good story. A guy named Randy Gregory, who may be going to a Pro Bowl this year after he'd been suspended, twice for substance abuse. He's battled back through reinstatement, through all of it, to get back on the field. And not only is he back on the field, he is playing an elite level without DeMarcus Lawrence, the top pass rusher, on the other side. You'd think Randy Gregory will get sacks when DeMarcus Lawrence, he's doing it without him. Now, did Kirk Cousins play terrible last night? You bet. But did Randy Gregory also get pressure the whole game? Did Micah Parsons play big? Did Anthony Brown make some big plays in the secondary? Yeah, they did. And that's why they won the game. Cooper Rush played good enough to win, no doubt. But he put up 20 points. The Dallas defense kept Kirk Cousins, who had the second highest completion percentage, who was throwing for a bunch of yards, to 184 passing yards last night on 35 attempts. They kept Dalvin Cook to 78 yards rushing. They kept the Vikings as a team to less than 100 yards rushing. You're going to win a lot of games. And that's the theme of this week. Defense winning ball games. That's what it's about here. Carolina yesterday beat Atlanta. Sam Darnold threw for $129. Didn't turn the ball over for once. But what did the defense do? They sacked Matt Ryan 4 times. They kept him to $146, and they forced 2 turnovers. It's going to lose you some ball games. And as we look at yesterday in the grander scheme, and some of these games, and how do we evaluate yesterday? You know, every Monday is Overreaction Monday, where we made grand declarations. Like I hear on ESPN, last week it was the Bengals are the best team in the NFC North. Really? Any idiot knows that they aren't. They beat Baltimore. Bully for you. But they're not the best team in the NFC North. The New York Jets have beaten the Bengals and the Titans. 2 pretty impressive wins. Titans are 6-2. Look pretty good. But that was the declaration. Bengals yesterday lose to the New York Jets without Zach Wilson. Mike White gets the win. His first career start as quarterback, the backup for the Jets. And does this write off Cincinnati? Well, they're 5-3. Certainly you think makes things more interesting. Baltimore was on a bye week. Pittsburgh gets a win. Cleveland drops to 4-4, which I'll touch on. But with the Jets, with the Bengals, they got Cleveland next week. That game just got a whole lot more interesting because you could have 2 5-4 teams, and two teams that you think would be fighting for a playoff spot. Cleveland is in a disaster mode, but for Cincinnati, their defense fell asleep yesterday. Mike White got a lead early. They choked late. Burrow could not get any points on the board. The Jets defense showed up, and we see what happens. But are the Bengals a bad team? No, losing to the Jets. But it also just tells you that the Bengals aren't as good as people say they were. They've never been the best team in the AFC North in years. It's still the Baltimore Ravens, despite losing to said Bengals 2 weeks ago now. Now, some other games before we get to the big ones. For Justin Fields, I thought yesterday was a really great step for Justin Fields. And it's not lost on me that Justin Fields, the rookie quarterback, 11th overall pick out of Ohio State, has his best game as a pro, while his head coach / offensive coordinator / idiot is out in COVID protocol. Matt Nagy is not available for the game, meaning it's just Bill Lazor and Justin Fields. He has his best game. What did we see yesterday? Bootlegs, play action, design quarterback runs, because he's an athletic quarterback. You didn't see him take 5-step drops, and then the defense is on him in 2.5 seconds. You saw him make reads, be strong with the football. He had a late interception. He'd want that one back. But he goes 19 for 27, buck 75. He also ran 10 times for 103 yards and a score. So you're seeing his athleticism. The Bears ran for almost 180 yards yesterday in a loss. You look at their defense, on the other hand, Elijah Mitchell ran 18 times for buck 37. Jimmy Garoppolo also had 2 rushing touchdowns on the day. That's where you lose the game. That's where you lost it. He also gave Deebo Samuel a ton of yardage. But for San Francisco, they stay in the thick of things. They're 3-4. The Bears are now 3-5. They play the Steelers next week. But San Fran playing Arizona off a loss. It makes it a must-win game. But Nick Bosa's playing an elite level. He's up to 6 sacks now in 7 games. He's playing good football. You got Fred Warner who in the middle playing at high level. But the Bears are not going to be anything this year. They're 3-5. They're not making the playoffs. San Francisco has a much better chance, especially now it's Seattle. I mean, Seattle did get a victory yesterday over Jacksonville, but I don't have a whole lot in faith of them down the stretch. They head into their bye week. They can hope that Russell Wilson will return after the bye week, but San Francisco still got good players. They got Deebo. They got Brandon Ayuk. Elijah Mitchell is a good running back. And we'll see what they can do down the stretch, especially against Arizona next week after they lost the opening matchup earlier this season. Also, yesterday, kind of a big picture for me. Tennessee, Indianapolis. I thought the Colts would win this game, to be honest. Tennessee, 2 big wins in a row. They've beaten beaten Buffalo, then defeated Kansas City. 2 big victories, and both at home, but still doesn't matter. Still huge victories. And I thought they'd have a letdown. This is their second meeting with the Colts this season. And early on, it looked like it was going to be a drubbing because, I like Frank Reich's approach to play calling. He trusts Carson Wentz more than probably any other coach Carson Wentz has had in the NFL. He's they went for it twice on the opening drive on 4th down. Love that. Smart plays. Jonathan Taylor is just an elite back where out of Wisconsin, this guy was just a guy who could run downhill in your face. He's like Derrick Henry, like Adrian Peterson. He's tough to bring down, but he's improved his game where now he's very much a viable threat out of the backfield. A few weeks ago against Baltimore Monday Night Football, he breaks off a 72-yard screen pass for a score. First play of the game yesterday, it hits him on a 35-yard wheel route. So he's elite. They do that. They go for it twice on 4th down. Then he hits Michael Pittman Jr. in the back of the end zone for a score. Next, first pass play for Ryan Tannehill's intercepted, which results in a touchdown for the Colts again. So they're up 14-0. But this is where I look at it. The defense, you let Derrick Henry for the 3rd straight week was really held in check. But you get Ryan Tannehill slinging the ball around, finding Westbrook-Ikhine, finding Michael Pruitt and Jeff Swain, tight ends who you probably never heard of in the end zone. AJ Brown and him have such a connection. But I mentioned you're tied late, 24-24 with a buck 45 left. So normally as a quarterback, you're in your 2-minute drill. Yeah, you're pinned deep at your own 3, but this is your chance to go win the game, walk off, field goal, or whatever you can get. But you can get a field goal to win. But Carson Wentz still hasn't learned. You're near the end zone, meaning if you're tackled in said end zone, you give up 2 points, and there's only a buck 45 left. But what does he do? He sees that he's going to get sacked, so he just basically throws one in the air, like trying to get rid of a balloon. And it's intercepted and picked and brought back to the house. He had gone 192 pass attempts without an interception, which is now 2nd in Colts history, passing Peyton Manning. But this is why Carson Wentz hasn't won anything. Yes, he was very close to winning an MVP award in 2017. That was a long time ago. Since then, he's blown out his knee. He's played inconsistently, and the Philadelphia fans booed him out of town. And there's times where you look at Carson Wentz and you're like, this guy is the future of the Indianapolis Colts. He's the future of the NFL. He's just a great quarterback. He's athletic. He's got a big arm. But to me, he lacks football IQ, and he lacks that killer instinct where you only have this much time left. You have to play with the cards that you're dealt and just throw the ball away. You see pressure coming. What do Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers do better than any other quarterback? Just throw the ball out of bounds. You live to play another day. You live to run another play. Here, you're not giving up points. You give up 7. Now, at first, okay, this is so Carson Wentz-esque, but he rebounds and he goes on a touchdown drive. And you're like, wow, okay, this is it. And they go to overtime. Colts win the snap. So, okay, Carson Wentz has another opportunity to close out this game. They get stopped after converting a first down, but then they keep Tennessee 3 and out. So Colts get the ball back. On that next drive, Carson Wentz is intercepted again. So you played 3 pretty damn great quarters where you and Michael Pittman were lighting it up. You overthrew Pittman on a play on a 4th down in the third quarter. But Carson Wentz had been pretty sharp. But then you get to the most important points of the game where you're in a divisional game. You're playing a tough Tennessee team. You know it's not going to be easy. And that's when he comes up the smallest. And you can look at it both ways. You can say defense, but that first interception is all on Carson Wentz. It's just lack of awareness. It's just stupidity. Not knowing your surroundings. Not having a feel for that time of the game. And in overtime, Tennessee makes a play. But again, this is just Carson Wentz at his finest. It could be an interception. It could be a fumble. When they played Baltimore a few weeks ago on Monday Night Football, the Colts should have won that game, but they didn't. Now, is it all on Carson Wentz? No. But you had Braden Smith back. Quentin Nelson is back on that O-line. You got Ryan Kelly, Michael Pittman, Jack Doyle, Mo Alley Cox. And you could say, okay, your defense was not great yesterday. Okay, I agree. But what did that defense do? They got to stop in overtime. They gave you the ball back, and you couldn't do anything with it. And with that loss, the Colts dropped to 3-5. That's a very tough predicament for these Indianapolis Colts because they are 0-2 against the Titans. Now, the one break they have is they got Houston again. I believe they have Jacksonville twice. So their division is extremely weak. And they also have the Colts this Thursday on Thursday Night Football. But I don't think that's a gimme they should win that game, but I don't think it's a gimme for the Colts because Carson Wentz, there's never a gimme with him. So the next couple weeks, they have the Jets. Then they have the Jags. Those should be wins. But then they go to Buffalo. That's no gimme. They host the Bucs. That's no gimme. So to me, that's 5-7. Go to Houston. Okay, you win that game. You're 6-7. Then they have their bye week. It's a late bye week on week 14. So a late bye. Play the Patriots at home. Who the hell knows? That's a tough one. Go to Arizona on Christmas Day. Arizona's going to have a lot to play for. Then they play the Raiders and finish at Jacksonville. They don't have an easy schedule. You needed to win that game yesterday against Tennessee because you already lost them, and now you're 3-5, and it's just a long, long grind of a season. And to lose these games early on where you had a chance to win both matchups against Tennessee and you lose them both, that's just a demoralizing feeling for this team. Now, on the other side of things, Tennessee is 6-2. They have some impressive wins. They've beaten Buffalo. They've beaten Kansas City. They've beaten Indianapolis twice. I still think those are impressive because Indy is a good team. Darius Leonard is one of the best linebackers in football. I just mentioned Jonathan Taylor is one of the best tailbacks. Carson Wentz, I wouldn't want him as my starting quarterback, but some people like him. So they're not a slouch opponent. They've lost to Arizona in week 1 where they were thumped, and the Jets, which is just an aberration. But they are 6-2. They are one of the best teams in the AFC, no doubt about it. But earlier this morning, we learned that Tennessee got the worst news they could possibly get, and that yesterday, their all-pro running back, the man who had 2,000 rushing yards last season, Derrick Henry, is having foot surgery. That'll be tomorrow morning. It's likely to be season ending. More likely than not, he will not play again this season. So that means the guy who has 350 more rushing yards than the next available running back, which is Jonathan Taylor. 350 more rush yards than the second leading rusher in the NFL. He is done for the season. And the Tennessee Titans have built their offense on running the football, play action / bootlegs. You get Derrick Henry running the ball early. That creates open windows for Tannehill to throw the ball to A.J. Brown, to Julio Jones when he's healthy, even tight ends more wide open. And it's such a hit for the Titans because they are, to me, they're proving week in, week out that they are an elite team. They were down 14-0 yesterday on the road, and they battled back and won the game. That's impressive. Again, beating the Colts twice, doing what they've done this year, beating Buffalo, beating Kansas City. Again, Kansas City's not the Kansas City of old, but you're still beating Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. You deserve some respect for that. So I look at this team and say, Ryan Tannehill's better than people give him credit for. The guy can throw the ball without having play action every play. A.J. Brown and Tannehill's connection is elite. Those two have something that you rarely see. They're not Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. They're not Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers, but they're starting to get that connection where A.J. Brown's going to get 1,000 plus receiving yards, maybe 1,500, 1,600 touchdown receptions. I mean, the guy's just a stud. They got to hope Julio Jones can stay healthy. I had my doubts about that the past number of years. He's just banged up. Another hamstring injury for him. So it would be nice to have them both available for this team. But, A.J. Brown with that list of tight ends. But just prior to the podcast starting, it was announced that the Tennessee Titans have signed a former All-Pro, the 5th leading rusher in NFL history, Adrian Peterson. Now, Adrian Peterson's an elder statesman. He's 35 years old. He played for the Washington football team, played for the Detroit Lions last year, running for 604 yards. He has not dressed this year in the NFL, but has stayed healthy, stayed ready for this opportunity. And I don't mind it, and here's why. Obviously, I need to see AP run. He's not what he used to be. We know that. He can't be expected to have 25 to 30 carries a game. He doesn't have that output anymore. But Tannehill is very similar to Derrick Henry, where they're downhill runners. You give them the ball, Tennessee O-line create some holes, and they are going to run through your defense. You put a linebacker in the box, you load the box. Adrian Peterson will run with fury like Derrick Henry does. Now, if you went out and got a Tevin Coleman or a Marlon Mack or any other back like that, I just think it's very different from the offense that they have right now. And Adrian Peterson they have McNichols on their roster. He's a good yak guy. You put him in third down, he can catch the ball in the backfield. That's never been Adrian Peterson's specialty. But we'll see. Again, I like the fit because you don't change your offense a whole lot. And some people might say, well, why wouldn't you just go get a running back, a better running back? You can change your scheme. I get that point. I'd often be in that corner where you say, okay, well, offensive coordinator, don't be so lazy. Just change up your philosophy. But Tevin Cole, the running backs available were Mike Davis and Tevin Coleman and Marlon Mack. They're not elite backs. These guys are just fringe guys where if you can get a strong offensive line and Adrian Peterson gets some holes, I think the offense can be just as potent, not as potent with Derrick Henry, of course, but can be just as good as having a Tevin Coleman or anybody else. So it's interesting to watch for Tennessee. I think Ryan Tannehill's been a very good quarterback for a number of years. He had Adam Gase in Miami. Adam Gase ruins quarterbacks. He ruins teams. He's a flatliner. And I think Tannehill's proven that he's a quarterback that can play. But this is really his time to shine. And also that defense that was bottom 3 last year, you need to play well because Tannehill had 2 interceptions yesterday. He's got to clean that aspect of his game up. But, he's going to make mistakes, but can you make some plays on the other end? They played very well this year. Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry III, Kevin Byard gets the interception in overtime. They have some good defensive players on this roster, but Dupree has been a good add off the edge. So that the defense can keep them in games, and we'll see what Adrian Peterson can do after not playing football for the first 8 weeks of the 2021-2022 NFL season. Now, Tennessee, they'll be in the spotlight right away, and we'll learn because they play next Sunday night, and they will be playing the Los Angeles Rams, who cruised to yet another victory yesterday. They struggled against Detroit. They did not struggle yesterday. They just wiped the floor with the Houston Texans. Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford's connection continues to just be at an elite level. And I'll just put this into perspective here today. Cooper Kupp leads the NFL in receiving yards with 924. That is 105 more than the second leading receiver, and that would be Deebo Samuel. And obviously Devontae Adams missed a game, but Cooper Kupp he also leads the NFL in receiving touchdowns with 10. Mike Evans, the big body, and DK Metcalf, 2 very differently built receivers, have 8. He is playing phenomenal, playing at such an elite level. And Matthew Stafford, he's second in passing yards behind Tom Brady. Not bad. We also look at quarterback rating. He's second in the NFL behind Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson has played 3 less games than Matthew Stafford. QBR, it's just incredible what these guys have been doing. And passing touchdowns, Tom Brady is first. Who's second? Matthew Stafford with 22. 10 of those going to Cooper Kupp. So these two are on. Cooper Kupp's on pace for over 20 touchdowns receiving, on pace for close to 2,000 yards receiving. So these guys are an elite pair. And not only that, you look at this Rams offense, Daryl Henderson continues to get involved in it. He's playing great. He had 90 yards rushing yesterday. He also had, a receiving touchdown on the day. Van Jefferson, you got Robert Woods, Higbee on tight end screens. So everything's going well for this team. And then the other end, you got Aaron Donald, you got Kailyn Ramsey, you've traded Kenny Young, but you got some good players back there. And it was announced today that the Rams have never been afraid to trade away draft picks. They are not about draft picks. They are about winning the Super Bowl. They got to a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. He's departed. He's wasting away in Detroit at an 0-8. At 0-8. The Los Angeles Rams today went out and acquired 8-time All-Pro, former Super Bowl MVP, and one of the best defensive players in the history of football, Von Miller, for 2 late-round draft picks. And I look at this team, and I just say they're loaded. They are loaded, and the Rams are gunning for that Super Bowl. The trade deadline is tomorrow. You got to get your deals in. And clearly the Rams, they're good with Darrell Henderson and Sony Michel. They don't need a running back help, so that would check mark. You got Kailyn Ramsey. You like your cornerback position, you're good. Linebackers, like, okay, yeah, we got some good guys. We lost John Johnson III. We lost we lost two of our guys, Troy Hill, to the Cleveland Browns. We like our additions. We feel good in that position. Where can we improve? Maybe a linebacker. They had Kenny Young, and it makes sense why they traded Kenny Young a few weeks ago now. They traded him to the Broncos. So Kenny Young is now on the Broncos. They get a win yesterday against the Washington football team. But you depart Kenny Young and you replace him, and I like Kenny Young a lot, but you replace him with Von Miller. Yeah, I'll sign up for that any day of the week. And I talk about defenses can still win titles, can still win you games. Well, the Rams, you can make an argument, even with Vaughn at his age. They have 3 of the top 10 best defensive players in football right now. I know for certain they have number 1, and that's Aaron Donald. Just a difference maker. He wrecks games. You can't block this guy. He's often triple teamed, which leads to plays for his counterparts where they can get sacks, where they can get quarterback pressure, so they can ruin games. And Donald's left off the score sheet. But guess what? Their record continues to improve, and that defense's efficiency continues to go up. So now you got him. Kailyn Ramsey, to me, is the best corner in football. Xavier Howard was in that conversation for a while. He's fallen off a Mack truck this year for the Miami Dolphins. Trayvon Diggs is very good for the Cowboys, but he's too inconsistent. He's not a great pass coverage corner where he'll intercept the ball, 7 interceptions in 7 games. But when it comes to man-to-man coverage, we saw what Adam Thielen did to him last night. That's not exactly where he thrives. Jalen Ramsey can lock up anybody in the NFL, period. He locks up DeAndre Hopkins. He'll go up against Mike Evans. It does not matter. He is legit. Now, is he going to get burned from time to time? Of course, but who isn't in the NFL? And then Vaughn. Yes, he's older. Yeah, he's not the Super Bowl MVP that he once was. He's had some major injuries, but the dude can still play ball. He can still get sacks around the edge. When you look, you got Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, and Von Miller all coming for your quarterback. That is a scary, scary thought for offenses and in particular quarterbacks. And for Ryan Tannehill, you're without Derrick Henry. You got Julio Jones banged up. You're playing great football, but you got to go into that lion's nest in the first week, sans Derrick Henry. Huge test for the Titans. Another one where they get another signature win on their belt against the Rams would be huge. But also the Rams now, to me, I said last week that if I had to bet all my cash on one team to be in the Super Bowl at the end of the year, it would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because it's hard to bet against Tom Brady. I like the receiving core. I believe their defense will improve down the stretch. It did last season. But do I like Tom Brady more than I like Matthew Stafford? Of course, even at his age. But the Bucs have good defensive players, no doubt. Shaq Barrett is very good. Devin White is very good. But, Vita Vea is a game wrecker in the middle. He's a fantastic player, great athlete for his size. But I can name 2 to 3 guys on LA before I even get to one on Tampa. And Cooper Kupp is playing at such an elite level. And if you got, the running game, you could say it balances out. I like Darrell Henderson a little bit more than I like Rojo or Lenny. So it gets more and more interesting in the NFC, because you got the Packers at 7-1. You got the Rams at 7-1. You got the Cowboys at 6-1. So they've had their bye week. And now the Bucs head into their bye this week at 6-2, following their loss to the Saints yesterday. Now, let's get to that game. Bucs Saints at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans. And it starts off, I didn't like the decision by Sean Payton to go for it on a 4th and 1, especially with Alvin Kamara getting the ball. Stuff turns into a touchdown for the Bucs. I'm like, okay, this is going to be good. But to his credit, Jameis Winston scrambling over the place, running for first downs. He also throws a dart in the back of the end zone, back shoulder fade to Traquan Smith for a touchdown. But on his next drive, Jameis is given a horse collar tackle down. He leaves the game on a cart. It was announced today Jameis Winston is out for the season with a torn ACL. Terrible news for a guy who's battling to be a starter in the NFL. Got the opportunity with New Orleans this year, was with Tampa's first 5 years, but he's done for the season. That's all you can really do here. In comes Trevor Siemian. I mentioned the former 7th round pick of the Denver Broncos. And what happened? Well, Tom Brady, he was asleep in the first half. That offense was asleep. He couldn't find receivers. He had a forced fumble against him. He had 2 interceptions yesterday. It just was not Tom Brady's day. Threw for 4 touchdowns, which is great. 1 to Chris Godwin, 1 to Mike Evans, 1 to Cyril Grayson, and 1 to Gio Bernard. But it didn't matter in the end because 2 interceptions. PJ Williams makes a big play. You have other guys make, Deontay Harris was a big guy yesterday for the Saints, being all over the place, making plays, but a forced fumble, Cam Jordan getting to the quarterback, and New Orleans just did enough. But you get to the second half and they're up 23-9 after Simeon's first drive of the second half is capped off by an Alvin Kamara 1-yard touchdown run. But in the next drive, Tom Brady goes down the field on 8 plays, touchdown, 3 and out for the Saints. Brady gets the ball back and scores another touchdown, this time a big strike to Mike Evans, who beat Marshawn Lattimore down the field. Another 3 and out by the Saints. But I mentioned defense. This team is built on defense. Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore, Marcus Williams. They have some really great players on the back end. They stop Brady. Next drive, Brian Johnson gets a 35-yard field goal. So they stay in it. But then blown coverage, Cyril Grayson, a track runner, finds Grayson. He hits a 50-yard touchdown. They fail in the 2-point conversion. So Bucs lead by 1. At that point, this is when I said they got a 23-yard field goal. And I'm like, okay, I don't trust them to win this game. But the defense stepped up. PJ Williams comes out of nowhere, intercepts the ball. We saw all day. Malcolm Jenkins, CJ Gardner-Johnson. This defense was physical with the Bucs. They did not make it easy. It's clearly a rivalry, and they do a good job of getting to Tom Brady, disguising it. This wasn't really that complicated. He was looking for Chris Godwin, but they were playing single high safety. It was man-to-man with safety help. He undercuts the route, intercepts him, and that was it. They bring it back to the house. Tom Brady sacked on the next drive on 3rd and 4th down, and the game's over. So the Bucs lose by 9 points to New Orleans without Jameis Winston. Trevor Siemian gets the win, which is just crazy that this guy's playing, in a football game. But I look at this game. I do think you saw some weaknesses for the Bucs. He trusts Evans. He trusts Godwin. He does not trust Cameron Brate at tight end. That's been proven. O.J. Howard doesn't have a real connection. He missed all of last year with Tom Brady. He doesn't have Scotty Miller. Antonio Brown was not playing. But there's no guarantee that these guys are going to be available come playoff time. And I don't see the wavelength that Brady has with anybody else. Cameron Brady doesn't. O.J. Howard does not. Godwin, he had 8 for $140. Great day. Mike Evans, he's got that connection with. He'll throw in the ball whenever, because Godwin can win 50-50. Evans can win 50-50 battles. He knows that, guaranteed. But who else? He throwing to Tyler Johnson, second-year player out of Vanderbilt. Doesn't have that wavelength. Isn't enough. So there was some confusion there. Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones, they're good running backs. They're not great running backs. That's the difference. You look for the day. Giovanni Bernard ran 2 times for 30 yards. Leonard Fournette ran 8 times for 26. Ronald Jones, 3 carries for 13 yards. That's only 14 carries. So, 14 carries today because Brady had 1 himself. That's not enough running attempts. I get Tom Brady wants to throw 40 to 45 times a game. That's just simply not enough, because you need to establish a run game. It can't just be Tom Brady all the time, because defense is just going to say, okay, we'll run the ball. And do you trust Ronald Jones or Leonard Fournette to do it? Because you haven't this year. Now, I still really like the Bucs. The Rams are, like I said, the Rams move today changes things for me. But do the Bucs do anything major at the trade deadline? I doubt it. You never know. I didn't see the Von Miller trade coming. I didn't think Denver would want to part with them. They're a 500 ball club. Do I think Denver's great? No. But you're still 500. You're telling your team basically you're giving up and you're tanking for a draft pick. Well, Denver had the opportunity to draft Justin Fields last year. They passed on him, took Patrick Surtain II from Alabama. So, but in terms of the Bucs, I do think they'll bounce back. They got a bye week. I still all the faith in the world that they'll get healthy. Other bye, they play Washington. Pretty good team to come back with a bye against. Then they play the Giants on Monday Night Football at home. Again, that's a pretty soft matchup for them, like their odds. Then they go to Indianapolis. That's a tougher game. Go to Atlanta, division game, but Tom Brady loves playing Atlanta. He's owned them since that Super Bowl. They play the Bills in Week 14. That'll be interesting. It is, however, at home, but those are two very good teams doing battle. They play the Saints in Week 15 at home, so that'll be a revenge game of sorts. They play Carolina Week 16 at the Jets. Nice little game there. And then they finish hosting the Panthers. So I think the Bucs will be okay. I do worry about Brady with those receivers long term. They need to get the run game going to really establish play action and get teams to bite. Again, Tom Brady's playing fantastic football, making great reads, but make it not so predictable where it's a pass play every time. You need at least a semblance of a running game. It doesn't have to be elite, but have a semblance. Look at the Chiefs. They don't even have a semblance of a running game. Defenses don't respect it. They'll give you all the time in the world. Run the ball. They just won't. The Chiefs won't, and it hurts them. And that's a huge reason why they don't win games. Daryl Williams averages 5 yards a rush on first down, which is the best in the NFL, but he doesn't do it enough. He's not given the opportunity enough, and too much on Patrick Mahomes. It leads to turnovers and it leads to a disaster for the Kansas City Chiefs offense. Now, New Orleans. New Orleans is a tough team to figure out because they're 5-2, half game back of the Bucs. They are a very good team on defense. I mentioned some great players that they have. Dennis Allen's a very good defensive coordinator. I think they change up their scheme really well. I mean, you see PJ Williams, he was dropped, looked like he was going to play shell safety, drops out to play cover one with safety help, and he makes a play on the ball. Malcolm Jenkins is a guy that flies all over the field. In Philly, he was that guy that was just a machine. You'd see him, he'd make a hit, force a fumble. This team is all over the football. They will lay the wood. But Jameis Winston going down with the ACL is catastrophic for this team because I don't know the status of Taysom Hill. Plus, Taysom Hill is not a guy that's going to lead you to the playoffs as a starting quarterback. The guy's a gadget player, and I know Sean Payton's going to want him to play well coming back, but he's not a quarterback that can play week in, week out, especially to have success in this league. He's better as a running back or as a fullback, an H-back, just a receiver, something. That's where his talents are, not at the quarterback position. But, Trevor Siemian is not the best option either because Siemian played okay yesterday, but it was still a position where Tom Brady, 9 times out of 10, goes out there with a minute and a half left and wins the game. That's what he's done his whole career. Defense was better than Tom Brady yesterday, and, they get the better of him. But New Orleans beat Tampa twice in the regular season last year. When it got to the playoff game, the Bucs locked them up and they won the game. But now, Taysom Hill will likely start. Trevor, maybe not this week because he's injured. We'll see Trevor Siemian and the Saints this week. I remember them mentioning it yesterday. I just forget. It might be Carolina. They have this weekend. The Saints have. Let me see here. They have the Falcons. Falcons at home, coming off a tough loss to Carolina. Matt Ryan's hands banged up. They're coming off 2 wins, but they're clearly still a fraudulent team because they couldn't even beat Carolina, who had lost 4 in a row. So you have a shot with Trevor Siemian for sure to win that game. But to me, New Orleans has an opportunity here. Jameis Winston is not a traditional rushing quarterback. But we saw him this year. He led the Saints in rushing early in that game yesterday. He might have finished tops in the game, if I'm being honest. I think he was scrambling early. That's what he does. He scrambles. He makes plays. Yesterday, Jameis had 4 carries for 40 yards. Kamara led the team in rushing with 61. However, he had 19 carries. That just tells you what kind of production Jameis Winston was getting on his scrambles. Now, this team can use that running quarterback. And to me, this is a team that has to look into signing Cam Newton. And before I get Cam Newton stinks. Did you watch him in New England last year? Okay. Cam Newton had nobody to play with last year. Tom Brady left New England because they left the cupboards bare. There was not a cheese and cracker for anybody to munch on. They were famished in New England. Jacoby Myers was just learning how to play receiver, converting from a quarterback. No, they had 12 catches by tight ends last season. What was New England known for under Bill Belichick? The tight ends playing such a key role with Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski for a decade, dominating that position group. Their running game was okay, but that was led by Cam Newton, who had 12 rushing touchdowns as a quarterback, which is a pretty incredible feat. But he can still throw the football. I watched him in preseason. He can play. He's been vaccinated. So that is out of you don't got to worry about that anymore. And he just adds another element. We saw Jameis running the football. Cam can do it better. He can throw they don't have an elite receiving core. Traquan Smith, Deontay Harris, they need to continue to use him. He was in special teams most of last year. The guy is so electric. He can make plays. Marquez Callaway's, and I think he's got so much more potential. He's not given the opportunities. Like, throw him the ball down the field to see if he can make a catch. And with Siemian, Taysom Hill does have a bigger arm. BYU quarterbacks do have big arms. You look at Steve Young, Taysom Hill, Zach Wilson with the Jets. These guys can throw the football. But if it's Trevor Siemian, it's not going to be a lot of chances. It's going to be dink and dunk. Here Kamara, here underneath to Adam Trotman, the tight end, where these receivers are not going to be utilized. Cam Newton is not the most accurate quarterback in the world, but he can throw the ball down the field. And I'm not saying the Saints are going to win a Super Bowl this year. I don't think they're going to win a Super Bowl with Jameis Winston. But the Saints are about being competitive, and they're about making the playoffs, at least getting in the dance and giving yourself a chance. They're a half game behind Tampa. With a win this week, they'll be 6-2. They'll be ahead of Tampa in the NFC South race. With Trevor Siemian or Taysom Hill, I don't think you'll make the playoffs. Even if you win this week against Atlanta, you're 6-2 with Siemian at the helm. Long term, I don't trust either guy to get you there. I give Cam Newton a much better chance. I heard Dan Patrick reference that he wouldn't have signed Cam Newton if he was Seattle because he knew Russell Wilson was coming back, or Dallas because there was not a season-ending injury. Well, I understand that point of view, and this is the perfect situation because Jameis is out the entire season. He has a torn ACL. He'll be back for training camp of next year, but he's not coming back. You don't have your QB1. If Taysom Hill was that good, he'd be starting over Jameis Winston. He just isn't. So you're left going, well, do we want Taysom Hill? I'd rather have him on the field when he's healthy, not concussed, to be a wide receiver, to be a fullback, leading the drive, and have Cam Newton who can go from behind him, Taysom Hill blocking for him. They find their way into the end zone. If I'm New Orleans, if I'm Sean Payton, I really look into this because I'm sure he looks at he thinks he's smarter than a lot of people, which he is. He's a smart guy. He's won a Super Bowl. But you also got to look in the mirror and say, Taysom Hill is not winning me a Super Bowl. Taysom Hill is not going to give me much playoff success. I need somebody that has at least been there, done that, who's been to the playoffs, who's been in these situations. Drew Brees is not coming out of retirement. He's at NBC doing the games, calling Notre Dame. He'll be at Notre Dame Navy this weekend. He's not coming out of the booth. And to me, Cam Newton sitting there, I go and I pick him up and he's playing for me. He learns the offense and he plays for me. Maybe he doesn't play this week against Atlanta. It's Trevor Siemian, whoever. But if you really want to have your best opportunity to make the playoffs, to be a competitive team, it's with a guy like Cam Newton, not Trevor Siemian or Taysom Hill. Again, you got the Falcons. Then the Saints go to Tennessee. Tough game. But again, Tennessee's played some tough opponents lately. Maybe they're a little banged up. Then you go to Philly. Definitely can win that game. Then they host Buffalo. Not an easy game. Host the Cowboys. Not an easy game. Tough schedule here. Go to the Jets. You got to think you can win that one. Saints then play the Bucs. Again, that's a tough matchup. You do match up well against them. Who knows what can happen there? Saints then play the Dolphins on Monday Night Football. You can win that one for sure. Play the Panthers. Again, division game, you can win it, and then you close at Atlanta. So I'll be interested to see what happens. But with two huge injuries, Derrick Henry and with Jameis Winston, Tennessee's addressed it earlier today. Adrian Peterson is not what he used to be, but they've added a guy that fits their scheme. We saw what Jameis was doing. It wasn't all pass plays. It wasn't all deep down the field. Maybe, just maybe, Cam Newton come in and fill that role and be that quarterback, a dual threat quarterback that they're looking for. Dallas with a big win. I think last night really proved that they are an elite team. They're 6-1. They're legit. I talked about that earlier. Kirk Cousins, him and Carson Wentz, people love to talk about them when they're playing bad. Well, they'll be talking about, I'm sure, lots today on the mothership, Fox, other shows, because Kirk Cousins wouldn't throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field. He would throw it to C.J. Ham, the fullback, with two guys an inch away from him. He threw for $185. He never took a chance. I think he just looks at his completion percentage and says, well, I want to keep it up high. That'll help me by my next contract or whatever. Sure didn't help him win last night because he took no chances. The offense was stagnant, and they dropped to 3-4, and he loses to Cooper Rush in his first NFL start. But the Cowboys defense is good. The running game is good. Receivers continue to get better. CeeDee Lamb's legit. Amari Cooper's still one of the best. So the Cowboys 6-1. I do still have the Cowboys behind the Rams and Bucs, but I would say in my power rankings, Cowboys are third. I have them above the Packers. Packers had an impressive win against Arizona, but I still don't trust that team. I love Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers. I don't love his connection with anybody else. The run game was impressive, but the defense, I have to see more from them to truly buy in and say Green Bay is better than Dallas, better than the Bucs, better than any of those teams. Cleveland. Wrap up with them today. I had Cleveland as my sleeper team to get to the Super Bowl. They're now 4-4. Put up 10 points yesterday against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Give up 5 sacks. Supposed to have a great offensive line with Jedrick Wills and Wyatt Teller and Jack Conklin. First of all, yesterday's loss was not on Baker Mayfield. How many passes was Jarvis Landry going to drop? How many routes was Odell going to run wrong? I give credit to Big Ben for winning yesterday. He only put up 15 points, but a win's a win. And he's still playing at a high level. I know people want to put him in the grave, put him in retirement. Well, to quote John Gibbons, suck on that one for tonight, will you? But Baker's banged up, but he can't do it all himself. He didn't play yesterday like Kirk Cousins, where it's dink, 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 completion percentage. Let's fuck winning the game. Let's just try to boost my statistics. No. He threw for 225. Not great. I'll admit that. However, he did not turn the ball over. Forced fumble, I'll admit, but he did not throw an interception. Nick Chubb ran for 61, Dearness Johnson. But Odell Beckham Jr. had 1 catch. Odell might as well I'd trade him over the next 2 days because he's more of a nuisance than anything. But Austin Hooper dropped 2 catches right in the hands. Jarvis Landry, fourth quarter, 3rd and 8, right over the middle, in the hands, drops it. That's a change. That changes the game. He had people working against him yesterday. This is a division game at home that you gotta win. You gotta win because now you go to Cincinnati, no gimme. Then you go to New England, no gimme. New England continues to get better, by the way. I think they're legit. I think they're a really good team, and I like Mac Jones. Play Detroit at home. I like that. Then they play the Ravens. Good luck. At Baltimore. Your division's not easy. It's not going to be an easy division to win. You play Baltimore twice in the next 4 weeks. You play the Raiders down the stretch. You play the Packers on Christmas Day in Lambeau. You play at the Steelers the second last week, and you finish with the Bengals. I look at their schedule, and this is truly so disappointing, but at 4-4, the way Baker's banged up, the team is just fluttering. They're going to miss the playoffs. The only way they don't is because the AFC is so lackluster. If I look at the teams that I think are locks to make the playoffs, I think the Bills are going to make the playoffs. Tennessee is going to make the playoffs. South and the West, I think the Raiders are going to make the playoffs. I think the Raiders are going to win that division. I like the Raiders. The North, Baltimore is making – so there's 4. There's 3 other teams. I believe the Patriots are going to make the playoffs. I think the Chiefs are going to make the playoffs. And there's another team. I think the Chiefs will turn it around. So that you got – will it be Cleveland? Could Pittsburgh squeak in? Who's that other team? It's not going to be the Jets. It's not Miami. It's not Jacksonville. It's not Houston. Do the Colts find a way? Colts and Cleveland are in a similar position. Denver's at 4-4. They have the same record as Cleveland. However, they just traded their best player in Von Miller. So who the hell knows? But a disaster season. Their defense played great. Yes, Myles Garrett has 10.5 sacks. The past couple weeks, their defense has been fraudulent. They played really well yesterday. But to me, Baker does have plays where I look at him and say, okay, you're not an elite quarterback, which I don't think he is. But he doesn't have to be an elite quarterback week in, week out to win games. Shouldn't have to. You don't have to be a stud. You don't have to be the number 1 quarterback because Tom Brady wasn't a stud in the Super Bowl last year, but they still won the game. And that's the most important aspect. Did you win in the big moments? Trade deadline tomorrow. Von Miller, Adrian Peterson are ads. I still think, I look at the Browns. I wouldn't be surprised if Odell's gone. I just think it's a distraction you don't need on your team right now. We'll see. But it's not a good scene in Cleveland. They got Cincinnati coming up, who will be looking for vengeance after a tough loss. We also got tonight. We got Giants at Chiefs. Giants are 2-5. They get a win last week. The Chiefs obviously are desperate for a victory at 3-4. I think we'll see a good game tonight, but I do think the Chiefs will come out on top. The Giants are tough because you got a quarterback that's tough to predict in Daniel Jones. They need to continue to let him use RPOs, do quarterback runs. If Kadarius Toney is healthy, give him the ball, use him like a Deontay Harris, but also he's a better receiver than Deontay Harris. So we'll see that game tonight. But what can the Chiefs defense show up for the first time in a while? I'm interested to see that. So enjoy the game tonight. I'll be back later to talk about the NHL, NBA, the whole other world of sports. But enjoy the game. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll talk soon.